Hi, Scott Fresener here with t-biz TV, and I'm with my very good friend Richard Greaves. And Richard and I spent last weekend at the ISS show in Nashville. And for those who don't know, in the summer I moved the entire t-biz office and complete staff from Scottsdale, Arizona to Bowling Green, Kentucky to be near my son Michael and my grandkids. And so we're at the beautiful studios offices of the Nutwood offices of t-biz Network. And Nashville's 60 miles away, and so just a kind of a quick jaunt down there. Richard drove down from Detroit, and we hung out for a bit. And this was the first year of the ISS show in Nashville. I was pretty blown away by it, frankly. They were pretty happy by it. They said they had 175 booths sold, which in comparison to other similar shows, they sell 225 to the Fort Worth ISS show. They had over 100 exhibitors, and they were real happy as far as the show staff goes. I don't know any numbers as far as attendance. I don't think they ever broadcast those too much. What was your take of the show, though?
Well, the new Nashville Music City Center. Got to get that right.
It's huge.
It's gigantic.
It's gigantic. And you park here, and you got to walk way over here.
What a pain! If you're not the very first person to park, or you can park there. If you parked exactly in the perfect place, because there's only one stairs to get upstairs, then you have to walk 2 blocks to get into the hall. So the parking and the doors and the stairways are a real pain, but there's nothing you can do about it.
But it's in the right location. It's 2 blocks off Broadway. It's right there. You walk out, there's Broadway.
The Music Row.
Oh, my God.
Oh, you've been here before, so.
Yeah, but you know, you hear about Nashville and you kind of think honky tonks and country western. It's a lot of rock and roll, and you know, you went down and you walk around and it's a band. You know, I mean, it is Music City, but it is not what I thought it was. It's not a bunch of guys in cowboy hats. Certainly,
no.
A lot of girls in real short skirts and cowboy boots.
A lot of girls and old people and Japanese tourists.
Actually, I felt very comfortable. I sometimes feel like the old guy, but you feel real at home there.
I don't drink, and so I'm always a little sheepish if I go into a bar with music because, you know, you're supposed to buy drinks. And I went into easily 6 or 7 places and was never hassled to buy drinks or whatever. Although there are many attractive waitresses that you'd like to talk to.
It's a fun. I think the show's going to grow. When Jeff Brown, the show manager, told me they were moving here, I thought, well, they got the right city. Nashville is nice located. Fun
central,
city.
Very central.
Yeah. So I think the show's going to grow. They're really psyched about it. I heard a rumor that they had a 5-year contract. Now that's just a rumor that someone said that they signed a 5-year contract.
But I heard it so many times. It sounds like something they broadcast, and it's going to be here next year.
Yeah. So anyway, so you walked the show. I mean, it was a small show, so what it was, 8 or 9 aisles, probably not like a Long Beach or like an Atlantic City ISS show.
Well, you and I did the report from Atlantic City, and Atlantic City was just like Atlantic City always is. This was about half of Atlantic City, and we didn't have as many East Coast executives that came, so there weren't as many people. And some of the things we looked at, it was seeing the people that I saw in Atlantic City and able to follow up because it's been a month, and I got quite a bit of feedback from the report that we did. I had people coming out of the woodwork that I hadn't talked to for 10 years.
I know, it's shocking. You do some of these videos and you wonder who watches them, and then hopefully you'll get the group. But you know, a lot of the regulars were there. Sometimes these shows you go there, there's very little screen printing. There's the big players aren't there. Here we had M&R, and we had all the big guys. Most of the big guys were there. A lot of them. A lot of screen printing going on.
Well, equipment people. There's certainly in Atlantic City there were a lot of fabric people, and there just weren't as many at this one.
They were there though, and I think I told you, people always ask me, where do I buy shirts? And I haven't picked up a catalog in years to many of these places. So I thought this time I'm going to pick up
This
catalog.
is the internet age. You're an old man. What do you...
I know, but I pick up a Sanmar catalog, and I haven't had one in years, and I'm going, this is like a Uline catalog. You know, you get Uline every week. I was blown away by, in the internet age, a hard catalog is still, and all these guys had these. I mean, my backpack, it was craziness, so I was surprised by that.
SNS had a gigantic catalog. I'm trying to think. Fruit was there.
They're all sitting on the table over here.
Lon Winters was in the Fruit of the Loom booth working there, so it was good to see Lon. And it was actually much quieter than when he's actually printing for someone.
Yeah.
So.
Well, the regulars are all there. I mean, we were there. We're the regulars. We're not 2 regular guys. That's 2 other guys, right?
I don't know who you're talking about.
That's Gary and Aaron on their blog, podcast. But Lon was there, Dane was there, Charlie was there, and you know, and it had. And sometimes those small shows don't get all the regulars. Then they get to the group and stuff. So I think it was a good show.
Well, Terry Combs was there with the Equipment Zone, right across from the Impressions booth where they had a lovely mixer.
We had a little reunion.
Yeah.
Mike and I were there. We ran the Hawkeye and Terry, and who else was there? I have to think. Oh, Aaron Montgomery, and so we took a little picture.
Jesse Martinez was there.
I missed Jesse. I didn't know.
Oh, you were there for like a day and a half?
Yeah, I must have missed it.
Oh, you're right. You
I was just
left
out for
early.
1 day.
You had children to take care of.
I had grandkids to take care of and things to do. So anyway, so what were the highlights, do you think?
I'm walking through the show, and I see Steve Monroe, who lives about 60 miles away from me in Detroit, and I haven't seen in ages since we used to do seminars. And I go over and I go talk to Steve, and he's standing in front of the Sabre, the new workhorse computer. And
Press.
Yes, the press. So I wasn't really paying attention to the press, and I said, "What is this? This is so quiet." And I got the full spiel. You know, it was a workhorse. I really haven't paid too much attention to workhorses for a long time. The Javelins haven't changed in 20 years. This machine that came out at Long Beach, which I did not go to Long Beach, I was so impressed. And
it's quiet.
It's spinning the whole time, and I just didn't notice it. It's running on a Windows Surface tablet, so there's all kinds of ways that they'll be able to somehow, I can't imagine that, but you could watch YouTube videos if your boss didn't catch you while you were printing. But it's all of a sudden, it's not one of those industrial ugly tablets or a control panel. Plus the machine is, I don't think there's anything really special about the machine except $38,000 for a very adult, I think it was an 810.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and the interface was fantastic. I mean, he showed me push a button, it's in Spanish, push a button, it's in other languages, and you know, it was very intuitive, I thought. And of course, Steve was suggesting that they do put speakers next to the holders. So
yes, Steve wants
bring up your have Pandora running. You know.
And if you're a good printer, if you hit 600 an hour, then you can have it a little bit louder.
Yeah,
if you want.
yeah. But I was blown away by that though, and it was just whisper quiet. Although it wasn't really printing much when I was in it was just cycling, and so it was just a whisper. But it was very nice. I think it's a real step up for those guys. I think they did their homework and looked at the market, and you know.
They also had a shuttle flash. I'm calling it a shuttle flash, which is what Lawson calls them. But I took a picture of it so I remember what the name is. But they've got a flash that goes under the head so that you can either print on a head or go run underneath the heads.
Well, you can print and then back it up and print again, as opposed to go around or to wait. And so it was interesting.
It's an anti-revolver.
Yeah.
Or not an anti-revolver, but a revolver competitor, which is faster than the revolver because you don't have to actually back or go around the heads twice.
Of course, you walk into the hall, and who's right there? Outside the entrance, actually.
Outside I think it was sort of an afterthought.
M&R, they got their grow light booth, you know, with the yellow lights.
The golden yellow room, the digital screen making.
And of course, Rich Hoffman, guys like Rich, when I had the U.S. screen, I was always the first guy there setting up and working the booth. Rich is always working the booth and holding court, and I'm blown away by the iMage, right?
iMage, S-T-E.
S-T-E.
S-T-E. Well, that's the imaging and screen.
Screen to exposure.
Ah,
okay. I'm gonna be right.
I hadn't thought about it.
Look that up.
I wrote down STE when I saw it in Atlantic City.
Well, they showed me image. I mean, direct to screen is the hot conquer right now anyway. But they're I don't know if we could say, but I think it was public. I asked them. They said they're selling like 5 a week. It's like a huge part of their they're shipping 3 a week.
Well, Jeff Baxter told me 4 a week.
Oh, that's what we said. We had a little conflicting information there. That's a lot, though.
But they can only make 3 a week.
But that's a lot, though. And their site, and they image a screen in just a few seconds, and then they exposed it when I was there in 4 seconds. Just under the LED lights, which is the sexy new deal. But I was blown away by that.
Well, it takes about 45 seconds to actually image the screen with their inkjet machine, which is not Epson. It's
they told me the head, and they showed me.
Rico head, I think.
It could be. I'm not sure.
So I apologize for that. But they initiated the STE2, and this has 2 exposure units on it. In Atlantic City and in Orlando, they showed a strip bar with 1,300 LEDs in them that will expose Ulano orange, which is a very, very fast orange emulsion, a photopolymer emulsion. It would go in and print the image on the screen, and then as it comes out, it'd be exposed and ready for the automatic washout, which I raved about.
That was cool. Take the screen over there, and like a washing machine,
But dual cures are a different problem. They require more exposure, and instead of a bar that's moving, now sticking way out the other side, you image the screen, it keeps on going, and it goes and hovers over a panel, which they then turn on. The LEDs come on instantly like a quartz flash, but it takes twice as long, so it's exposing. Maybe it takes 90 seconds to make a dual cure screen. It does have this aircraft carrier thing that's sort of sticking out the back, so it takes up a little more space, but a dual cure, which is the best stencil that you can make, in 90 seconds.
Yeah, it's amazing.
90 seconds. It can't take 30 seconds to swap screens to start them. Well, it'll take longer than that to punch up the next image you want. But
for those of you who don't know about direct-to-screen, it is a hot deal, and there's no film, and of course there's no vacuum. I mean, it's funny they have a vacuum exposing unit there, and they have to bring the lid down for the light to come on. Well, they don't need to turn the vacuum on, so they're having to bring the lid down part way, but they'll need the vacuum so they need the light to come on. So one of those
printing in digital
in Columbia, early on, must be 20 years ago, and they're just putting the screen against the wall. They're, no vacuum, no glass, they're sticking a light on. Going, what the heck is that? And so it's not new technology, but I think it just took a while for that whole thing to kind of kick in.
Computers have caught up.
Yeah. Then it was a 486 probably, or maybe that was 30 years. So M&R was there in force, which is a good sign because sometimes they don't go to some of the smaller shows. So to me, when I look at the show list and you see, okay, exhibitors don't care about that, and you see M&R, you kind of go, well, maybe there's going to be some people there, So I think that's a good sign that M&R went there. Who knows what deal they made him to get him there as a draw, but they were there in force for sure.
The idea that Rich Hoffman goes there himself, and of course he's the greatest salesman it can be.
He is really, I thought that was good. I mean, he is working the room. Rich is always holding court. I got to give him credit. Rich and I, go back, whatever, probably like you, 30, 35 years. But
just the idea that, if Rich Hoffman's selling you, it's, my father once told me that when he went to Las Vegas, he saw Frank Sinatra gambling, and he was able to gamble with Frank Sinatra.
That was cool.
Imagine what the greatest shill there is, but not that Rich Hoffman is a shill, but just
but just
he's also he really explains it. He knows his stuff. He's not an executive up in the ivory tower.
Yeah. What else was hot?
Well, just while I was at the M&R booth, David Boulding is back at NASDAR. David Boulding had gone off to do some other things, and those that know David Boulding, I know him and love him for ages. So it was just great to see him back.
People bounce around, don't they? They kind of leave and they come back.
He went off and he left NASDAR to go into what he was, much more interested in, which is motorcycle accessories and screen printing and stuff like that. But his wife, I think, wanted him to have some kind of a different job. He did explain it. And
or a real job with real benefits, maybe.
Let's not.
Yeah.
He did tell me that he did take some time off before he came back to NASDAR. He had a beard down to there, looked like a Duck Dynasty guy. But we won't.
Now, how big was the M&R booth? Because I actually kind of I talked to the...
There was a 30 by 30.
Because I went to the show that went around, and I kind of went from Rich's, the thing outside the show entrance where the orange booth was for the image.
The gold room has to have been 20 by 20.
Yeah. And
their booth, the big equipment booths were 30 by 30. So Workhorse had a 30 by 30.
They were there with Tubelite, which you wouldn't have known by looking at the signage.
Oh,
but that was a Tubelite booth because Tubelite's in Memphis.
Well, there wasn't much room for anything in there.
No, it was all,
you
would have thought it was a Workhorse, and Workhorse probably paid the rent, but it was kind of a Tubelite.
But you're right. The local distributors, they had the factory there. What else we got there? The Saudi people were out in force. I mentioned them at the Atlantic City show, but Ben Petsy was there himself. Ben Petsy and his entire gang of salesmen, George Jensen, Keith Perkins.
I was surprised by that. They really had for a small show, you wouldn't normally always see those guys at a small ISS show.
But when I looked at a map of where Nashville is, well, Atlanta's just over there, and Texas is just over, and I talked to a round robin of people that were from all over. Not a lot of coastal people coming because we get those shows, Long Beach and Atlantic City.
But it's a good central location, I think.
People from Florida.
Yeah.
So, again, we go back to the Nashville's a good thing.
But Sonny was promoting a new emulsion, or talking it up.
Saudi had a new emulsion called PHU, and they were giving away samples, but somehow I forgot to pick up a sample. But it's supposed to be more of an all-rounder, and now's the time for you to call them up and say, gee, I heard about the emulsion. Can I have my free pint?
What was their claim to fame? I talked to Bruce Basin about it, and what was the big reason to roll out the new emulsion? fast. Well, see,
I don't know.
He told me, and I'm thinking, what's up with all the new emulsions? You got Ulano's got their new stuff. I just saw a news release came in today that they're actually shipping with their container thing that you showed in the last video we did. And
well, we'll see what there's one at home for me.
Saudi has a new emulsion. I'm just thinking, what is it? Is it speed or just better resolution or what's up? I mean, you know, for years it's been the same goop.
I think because there's already an HU, it's PHU, and so it has to be something.
Oh, it's more water resistant. I'm telling you what, I had to think about.
Well, I think that's what I just mumbled, but I only mumbled that if you want an all-rounder, that you want little water resistance, people that want to do discharge 20% of the time. Smaller types, they don't want 2 different emulsions.
No,
Screen makers can't handle the complexity of 2 different emulsions.
What do you say?
Well, who else can I insult? The day is early. The day is early.
What else did you say that was
on the gossip side, Dave Ramirez, my old friend from Los Angeles, lives in Palmdale, is back at Sati. I mentioned him in passing, and Ben Petsy looked at me and said, Dave works for us again.
They had like a hiring spree because I know Bruce Basin had just started. I think he'd been with them only a few months. I thought because what he said.
It's strong.
Who knows? Who knows?
Sati sells direct. So,
see, I didn't know that. I don't always follow the dealers and see who does what, you know. But I was blown away because I'm out of touch occasionally by Sherlock's booth, and those guys always amaze me. But he had his squeegee cleaner, which you said had been out for a couple of years, but I think
it's been out for a lot longer than
I'm telling you
years.
What, he's going like this, and boom, there it is.
It may be that Jim never brought it to shows, or
well, he was doing like the Franmar thing. He was like right there in front, you know. Hey, watch this, and he put on the rubber gloves and inked up a squeegee, you know, just like Frank from Franmar would always do. Watch this, you know. But I was just blown away because you know we do our classes, and when the classes are over. Where do the squeegees go? They come home wet. I mean,
wrap them in a plastic
we're tired.
bag.
We've been teaching for 4 days, and so we just wrap them in a bag, and then 3 months later, we open the bag up and go, oh, crap.
What's that smell?
We got to clean these things. So anyway, so I thought, well, that's a hot deal. But I just hadn't seen it before, because I always think of him as being a mesh guy, and always doing his mesh demos and stuff.
As I went by them, I say my usual lows, and then I say, I really want you to start, permanent blocking out those Sherlock panels. I'm just
you think he would
working the room.
Do that? I don't know. That's interesting.
Well, who would? We'll see if people would pay for that. Or I'm just saying. Also at the booth for Sati, or not at the booth, but I met Sam Belford, the guy that I made fun of. I apologize, Sam. But I teased him on the video we did last month for Atlantic City because I said, "Ooh, there's a Sam Belford there." So I talked to Sam, and he's a very knowledgeable fellow. His dad would drag him into the old Chicago outfit that they had at Sati, and would have him making screens on Saturdays because he couldn't get other people to come in. So Sam has clearly made a few screens before and was quite knowledgeable.
And you made amends.
Well, I have to go. Everybody that I teased that I didn't actually know, I have to at least go. I was glad to meet him, and he didn't know anything about the video, so he was going to go back. I showed him on my phone that he's going to go back and be insulted later when he gets home.
Now, we mentioned the Who's Who earlier, and we actually missed Rick Roth was there, and you wouldn't often see Rick at a small show. I mean, he would be at a big show and holding court as he does, and because he's very well known and Mirror Image, and I always think of Rick as if people say, who's Rick Roth? I think he's the guy that did the Weigman shirts. The dog shirts, and they were magnificent. But Rick has now got his new, I say new, loosely, it's probably not new, but it's the inkkitchen.com, right?
He's promoting...
it's on the shirt here somewhere.
He's promoting a blog that he and Tom Davenport created about, I don't know, maybe...
Well, travels.
It's only 3 months, but it's just tips, practical tips for any screen printer. Now, they do have a lot of sponsors.
This is the shirt. They promoted a mixer at Layla's, and that was usually even the small shows. There's not a mixer anymore because the shows are cut back.
Well, in Atlantic City, they had a booth, and they were talking to people, but they didn't do a booth here. What they did is they had a fundraiser at Layla's on Music Row, which we could talk about all evening. But Haynes gave away printed shirts. I don't know who actually printed the shirts. It was either Tom or Rick probably. And they had all the sponsors, and man, did they... Haynes really did a nice job.
They did 200 of these, I think.
No, I think they did more than that Pierre Yamnishi, another know-it-all from the Ink Kitchen, probably took 150 shirts home with him in the trunk of his car, and they're still going to distribute them.
Well, they had posters too. They had a poster. You got it.
Posters,
the shirt, and it was a nice little mixer. You know.
They were giving out beer tickets. So
if you wanted food, you had to go to the hot dog guy in front.
You had to go to the hot dog guy.
That was okay.
You know, I watched Ben Petsy. Ben must have grabbed an awful lot of those because he was giving out a lot of beer.
Well, it was nice to have a mixer because, again, some of the small ISS shows over the years have become budget cuts, and then, you know, they screw it. You know, we don't need a show, and so that whole mixer thing used to be when we were years ago. There was always a show party somewhere, and you go network, and I think that's probably where I met you, probably 35 years ago. You know.
Well, Impressions used to have those get-togethers the day before the show. Seminar
they had
speakers
that. For
and
the exhibitors.
exhibitors.
Yeah, then they'd have the show party with the spread, but somebody would always sponsor it, you know. But now Layla's was kind of a cool place. Had a hot little band, and did you see those two guys dancing on the Alone?
Yes.
I have video of that. Maybe I'll try and put it on here. But I don't know what this dance is. Doing this, and this guy was like picking cotton or waving to his friends. But anyway, you'll see the video. These two guys were on the floor all alone, just oblivious to anybody else. They weren't with us. I don't think they were T-shirt guys.
No, I believe they were fellas that are always on the music row.
They were the entertainment.
They were regulars at this or at all the. But it was a charming night, and again, no pressure. It was. You have to thank the sponsors. Rick raised an awful lot of money for a homeless shelter in Nashville, and that goes along with his usual leanings. He's been a very socially active person for such a long time, and that's what the Ink Kitchen is really about, doing good things.
Yeah. Now Lon was there.
Lon Winters.
And you said that earlier, and he was working the fruit booth, and had his little stand of his the box with how to print dark shirts.
Yep.
And of course, if you know my history, I came out in 1994 with a thing called Dark Shirt Printing Made Easy that had films, a sample shirt
on 5 1/4 inch discs.
5 1/4 inch disc. I said to Lon, that's a great idea, because I've talked to him before. I like that idea. That is really cool. He says, well, someone gave us this idea years ago. He says, you were our model, Scott. We modeled our whole kit after your Dark Shirt Printing Made Easy kit. And that's a great idea. I'm not banging on him because you get films. I did a class 2 months ago, and a couple of the students had bought the kit, and they came to class, and they were like strutting around with that lion shirt on, and they had never done a simulator process job in their lives, and they just followed the directions, and they were just happy campers. So it's a good deal. But I thought it was funny that I'm looking over there going, oh, Dark Shirt Printing Made Easy. That's about 25 years ago. So anyway.
Probably on DVDs though, not on VHS.
Yeah, I think I still have the 5 1/4 disc somewhere. I saw that Dane, actually, I haven't followed Dane's his entire clip art collection, but since Stalls now owns Dane, I was surprised they had a booth kind of like Action Illustrated has and stuff, but he had a lot of books, and maybe he's had them for a while.
Well,
but there was a lot of stuff.
He has had clip art books for.
I just never saw him display them. Maybe he did. Maybe I just missed it, but I was blown away by the breadth of it. It was almost like a digital art, smart designs kind of booth with all kinds of stuff going on.
Now, I did notice in the catalog that Dane is now listing Louisiana as his address. I didn't get a chance to talk to him, but
he did move, didn't he, to St. Clair Shores? Or?
Oh, I didn't know that he moved to Michigan.
No, but I talked to Dane at SGIA, and I thought maybe I misunderstood. I saw Dane with a suit and tie on at SGIA. Did you catch that?
Dane with a suit and tie on.
I was blown away. I'm going, huh? This is Dane, and he looked snappy, and he was good. I said, what's going on? He says, well, Ted Stahl's having a little breakfast thing, and Ted wanted us all to dress up. I've never seen Dane in other than a big Hawaiian shirt or whatever. So.
I used to wear suits to shows.
Yeah, that was the day. Now I wear a T-shirt and figure, what the hell? This is the business we're in, So, but other than that, what else did we see that was new?
Now I have to go down and look here. Who else did I see there that had something? Well, I did go around and visit some of my friends with my UV meter because I measured the Vastex and I measured the M&R Starlight exposure units, and there is quite a bit of difference in power. The M&R is much more powerful than the Vastex, so there's definitely a difference in those.
Now
LEDs.
You said Rich had upped the amp. I mean, made it more powerful, but had Vastex.
Well, they have a bigger array, and it's a much tighter.
But
array.
Mark had done something at Vastex too. Had increased the array.
Well, he's changed the way the arrays are. He's lowered them a little bit and spread them out, so you get a much better resolution.
You had commented, I thought that maybe there was not banding, but there was, if you really measured the emulsion, that because the LEDs.
Well, in the experiments that I talked about on the Atlantic City report, I'm talking about looking at very fine lines, like guitar strings very close together, 10 thousandths lines and spaces, lines from the autotype exposure calculator,
right.
that I would look at in through a 200 to a 400 different values. This is so much more extreme than a textile printer really needs to be. And I would see that there would be, they wouldn't be straight lines. They'd be, is that reflection or light scatter from the mesh, all kinds of. I still say that for textiles, I wouldn't even consider it a problem at all.
No.
But you're always going to get people that are going to do the high end that are going to need a single point light source. But even a single point light source has to start from someplace, and there's always going to be some angle, there's always going to be some light scatter. So for 25 years I've been telling people that you still have to calibrate, that if you're going to get some choking of the dots, if you need 10% dots, you may have to make them 12 or 15% so they end up to be 10%. So
that's the thing doing SEPs now that I deal with all the time is I'll give them SEPs with maybe an 8 or 9% dot, and they'll call back and say that the image looks washed out, and I know it's because they're not exposing right, and they're probably holding nothing below a 20. And so sometimes I have to adjust the SEPs for those guys, knowing that that's what it is. And of course, their screen guys say, not our problem. And I always have to tell the artist, you're going to have a little fight on your hands here. You're going to go back as the expert and tell some screen guy that he's not doing it right. And you know what that happens in a big shop, that ain't going to fly at all. You know, so anyway.
The art department and the screen making department have got to be a pair, and they have to, it's not a trick.
But they're not in some shops. You know,
you have to tune a piano. You have to aim a rifle, or you have to sight in a rifle, and if you're throwing a baseball in the wind, you have to throw it a little to the left so it ends up in the catcher's mitt.
I like that. You always were good at analogy. So I walk into the show, and outside of the show, before you get through registration, is a little screen print setup, a booth, obviously, with a press and a dryer, and like sitting there. Well, the story is, Mike and I, my son, with our Printers Boot Camp, we had booked seminars at the Music City Center before it was even open. It's been open for a year, but it was brand new, and we actually had the meeting rooms booked, contract in hand. We were jazzed. We're going to do our boot camp at the Music City Center. And the gal calls me up and says, it says screen printing here. You can be using inks in that room? I go, yeah, just can't do it. Brand new. You're going to get ink on the carpet. No, we've been doing this for 30 years. I'll put down Visqueen. No, we can't do it. No, I begged. I said, I'll give you references of hotels I've done this in. No, you can't do it. They canceled the contract. We had to go somewhere else. So when Jeff Brown tells me that they're going to do the show at Music City Center, I says, you better talk to those guys because you're not going to be able to print in the meeting rooms. Oh, no, not a problem. You know, we're ISS. It's okay. So I get to the show, and this is a little second. So I mentioned to Marcia Derryberry, what's all that stuff on in front? Oh, well, they wouldn't let us print in the meeting room. We just found out 2 months ago, and so we had to put Charlie's hands on down here on the show floor because they told me I could do it on the show floor where it's concrete, but I could not print in the meeting room. So I had to have a little chuckle like, well, I told you guys.
I told you so.
So anyway, that was pretty funny. But it's a beautiful facility. You know, I mean, I hope the show grows to be a huge show. Maybe it'll be like an Atlantic City show.
What a nice hall.
Yeah.
I mean, very pretty on the outside, but.
So what else is going on?
I'm in the equipment zone booth. And I'm talking to Terry Combs, and then all of a sudden, it's not all of a sudden, we're there for a little while, but all of a sudden there's people behind me and people crowding around. And,
that the booth was getting busy?
Wow, this is pretty good.
These are good guys.
Because I was kind of, amused that Impressions had such a big booth and there was no real space in it. Then when I finally turn around, holy smoke, ISS is having a mixer, and they're giving away free beers. Guys are walking around with bottles.
Those days I thought had died. I mean, it used to be at SGIA, Screen Print Magazine would maybe on setup day, but I think for the show to do a mixer on the show floor, that's kind of unheard of, frankly.
And beers.
Yeah.
Beers at all. It used to be European shows, you'd see that all the German distributors would, of course, be
booths,
lots of beers there. But,
yeah.
So the ISS handout is, of course, what we all study. And I was interested that there seemed to be more screen printing seminars this year than there were last year.
Yeah, I think they're getting back to their roots a little bit. I think with Jeff Brown in charge now, the kind of new management and the new owners of the show, Emerald Exhibitions, are really, I think you can see ISS kind of, spreading their wings a little bit more.
It's been 10 years since they really cut back. They used to do about 70 seminars at a show, and then they cut back to about 30 in 2002, and that's when I did my last seminar for them because I got, I was laid off. Yeah, I was laid off, right?
Well, they went to where they hopefully they had exhibitors speaking, so there'd be no airfare, no hotel, and you were not an exhibitor.
It was,
so
you know, as the show started getting, but we've got good shows coming up. Although August is the show in where is it?
In Vegas.
Is it? Oh, it's in Vegas.
Yeah,
that's right.
It's gotten mixed reviews. I mean, it's a small show, so it could build, but it's only been there. I think this will be the third year. I'm thinking for ISS Vegas.
And then we're going back in October
to SGIA. Yeah. So and that.
Well, you know, I think I did realize it because Greg Kitson Screen Print Biz Group. I came down early to help promote them. They had a show. They didn't get to have their. Gosh, they had a lot of room at Nashville. They should have been able to, but they didn't get a room at the ISS show, so they had their Screen Print Biz Group, which is pretty well attended. They have 12 paying members that came.
I think it's spbiz.com.
Yes, spbizgroup.com. The website is not very slick yet, but it's not the website you're actually going to. But it was at the Holiday Inn Express at the airport, and that's where I stayed. Mm-hmm. But the group was very lively, and it was supposed to end around 4 o'clock, and we didn't leave until like 6 o'clock to come down for the Laylas.
Now this group is pretty much management with heavy dues.
Well, it's $100 a month.
Right. So for a lot of guys are going, are you kidding me?
$1,200 a year to improve your business. I promise it'll pay for itself if you're serious about doing the homework.
Yes.
They get their assignments of what they're supposed to start calculating, and if you don't do that, you might as well not go. If you're not ready to go do your accounting homework, you
have to do reports and production and numbers and hours and all that stuff.
And you take a guy with a real accounting degree, Mark DeBarrel, and Greg Kitson, who has been the best collector of status of a shop and putting that into spreadsheets and really analyzing that. I know that all my influence in my early years in actual sewing shops where you meet these engineers that are trying to trim 2 seconds off of the ladies that are doing their sewing. And 2 seconds was the world. If you could cut 2 seconds out of a lady's recycling time and get an extra 50 shirts out of a single sewer, that was the big deal. He had guys with stopwatches all the time, and I was very influenced by that in the early 80s.
Coudray was there?
No, he was not.
He was going to come, though. I didn't want to miss Mark if he was at the show. I didn't see Mark at the show. So
I don't know if he's supposed to come, but I know that 2 people at least were just in passing when it came to the ISS seminars. They were not, gee, I missed Coudray's social media seminar at Long Beach, and they didn't want to buy the discs, or I guess there was something the matter with the recording, and there was no sound on the Coudray.
Well, I've done that.
I'm not exactly sure, but at least
like
2 people brought it up in just regular conversation that no, I'm never going to see the Coudray thing. So I of course.
Well, I didn't. Because I was only at the show one day. I'm not sure if I missed him or not. I didn't want to. Mark, I think we ignored him when we said that the heavyweights were there.
The big deals about the new impression seminars. If you're not coming to the show, you're not doing seminars. They don't fly people out like they did in the olden days.
Yeah, it's definitely a different deal. So
I of course told both of those people to buy Jeffrey Gitomer's book Social Boom. It's not the Coudray. It's not what he was talking about, focusing on targeting Facebook customers.
Jeffrey, ex-screen printer, ex-partner of yours. So anyway,
I got to get the plug.
Yeah, ISS, as they're growing, they have partnered with Surf Expo in Florida, and they're doing. I thought she said September, which is. Usually they don't.
Well, they got 2 shows in September.
Yeah.
The first one in Fort Worth, the 4th to the 6th, and then Orlando on the 18th to the 20th.
And that's what Surf Expo.
Yeah,
they're real excited about that because it'll bring in kind of buyers who maybe would come to both shows that maybe wouldn't have come to just a small ISS show.
Surfing was such a completely different market.
I've never been to a screen printing show.
There were a lot of surfing shows in the 80s.
Yeah.
When surfing shirts really seemed to change the world. Long sleeve T-shirts and stuff like that were all surfing orientations.
Now maybe that show's declining too. A lot of shows have declined, and maybe this is now their way to pump it back up. Graphics of America, she'll kind of decline a little bit, and they hooked up with Vespa.
The web is taking over.
So
I was also looking in the back of this book, which is the book and
the show directory.
The show directory.
Yeah.
The cross reference was kind of odd because. There's the cross-reference of emulsion manufacturers, which I'm interested in, and I want to see the people, and they didn't have any of the emulsion manufacturers listed, and I think that's because the factories weren't there. that
No, they were all there through dealers.
the tube light thing that you mentioned before, that Workhorse is not going to be mentioned because they didn't have a booth. So for a person just starting out, it's not really, the cross-reference wasn't really as helpful as I would have thought it would have been.
Yeah. Now there's quite a bit of DTG. I mean, but Epson was out in force, and those of you that know me know that I'm talking up Epson because, you know, 1-year warranty on the head, on-site service. But, you know, Lawson had an Epson in their booth, and Belkett had an Epson in their booth. I mean, a lot of DTG, but it was all Epson. I think Belkett probably had their own machine. I didn't really see.
Belkett had their other machine over in the corner.
That's the stepchild.
The bad corner.
And Equipment Zone had one. Stalls had one. You know, and so here's a small show where you had Epson was really out in force, and they're shipping machines, and so far I haven't heard any trash about it. I mean, you know, the forums will probably light up one day with somebody who has a hair up maybe about it, but you know.
Well, didn't they pull? You know, they haven't really distributed them in the United States.
Yeah, they're shipping
now.
Yeah,
though,
they start shipping
even though
in
we
March.
saw it in Orlando.
Yeah, they actually, I think, shipped some back to Japan to tweak something, and so they're shipping now. But I was just surprised that you see, because you know, a lot of times a small show doesn't get all the guys. You go there and you walk it in an hour, you know. And this show was a little different, I thought. So I was pleased to see that, though.
I went to see my old friend Jeff Proctor, to needled him because I didn't get the samples that I was expecting, that I needled him about in Atlantic City. And he was at the booth with Plaza Art, a distributor that I worked with when I was the...
I thought it was in Lancer's booth.
Well, it's
Another
a Lancer
distributor
booth,
deal?
but perhaps, you know, some sort of a co-production with
missed that.
Plaza Art.
I talked to Jeff, and I thought it was Lancer's booth.
No.
Yeah. But is Plaza Art his distributor in this area?
Yes, Plaza Art is a local. In fact, they were only 2 blocks away. So
they're like an art store.
Yes, but they've got good screen prints.
Yeah,
They're a Yolano distributor.
But you know, people don't always know that. Sometimes that was in the years ago. That's who carried screen print supplies. Was an art store.
Mm-hmm. So I'm giving Jeff Proctor the needle, and he goes, "We'll go over to Plaza Art." Richard Brookert says that I'll go over to the store tomorrow and bring you those samples back. And so I left with my bag of Arctic White so that I could go test it with my viscometer.
You got your Arctic White. I heard good things about that, actually.
I had to carry it myself. I don't like that, so I wanted to come by with the UPS man.
You know, I don't think Union was there or Rutland.
Well,
Tubalite is
Rutland.
Tubalite's a dealer, but they didn't have any of that stuff.
I'm trying to think of where he was standing. The Rutland guy, DeMarco.
He must have been with the distributor.
Was there, but he was with the distributor, and he was kind of low key, but I saw him the entire time.
Oh, see,
he was there.
I missed that. You know, I thought maybe Joe Catterson might be there.
But WM Plastics was there as an
WM,
in company. I saw Gary Voles there.
Yeah.
When I'm sitting in the Lancer booth or the Plaza Art booth, I'm looking across at the J America booth, and I saw for the first time, I'm sure that they've been around for a long time, but I saw a glittery shirt where the glitter was actually part of the shirt. It was a coating that was on the fabric, so it looked like little stars. It looked like the perfect girl uniform thing. And I was amazed. I went and touched it. You know, there's a feel to it, but that would excite me. That's certainly a reason. Totally. Well, I think, you know, it's something because I was talking to Jeff for such a long time. And I said, "What is that?" It was a pretty damn interesting coating, a finish on the shirt.
Saw tons of rhinestones, though. My God.
Ooh,
I think rhinestones would die off, maybe, but you know, that bling thing. I mean, I tell you what, and guys working the booths wearing these, you know, they wouldn't wear them out. I saw a guy down in Nashville, obviously from the show, wearing a huge rhinestone thing on the back of his shirt. Anyway, he fit right.
Was he a cowboy?
No, he was a show guy that was hanging out down there.
Just to repeat that, Joe Hopkins was at the tech support of Pittsburgh booth, and Jesse Martinez was there just traveling around the show. But again, here are 2 smaller water-based companies that are sending their national reps to the trade shows so that people can see them. The fact that they've got national representation, I think is going to be a big step for them, and they're going to do a good thing. I'm going to go see Jesse Martinez in Cleveland tomorrow. Yeah. He's going to Pierre's Blue Moon place. What else did I see here? Well, there's, of course, the dinners. We went to Jack's Barbecue the first night, and I was worried about the big long lines, and it turns out that it's a cafeteria style. Well, I like that because, boom, you have to wait 10 minutes in the line, but you don't have to wait for the drinks to come, and then you have to wait to actually order, and then everybody in your big group has to get their food all at the same time. Because when we went to Rippy's across the street later on, I'd noticed as I was standing outside giving away the beer tickets that, there's no line over there. It must not be as good a place. But Rippy's ribs were much better than the Jack's ribs because we got there kind of late. But all the ribs and brisket that I ate in Nashville was better than all the ribs and brisket I've had in Detroit.
It's great food.
The worst was better than all of Detroit.
There's an area there called Printer's Alley that Mike and I discovered. We've done a number of boot camps in Nashville. And I don't know why it's called Printer's Alley, because there's a big placard.
Used to be printing.
Kind of, but it's like the entertainment district, and so you'd have to call it the full red light district, kind of. But it's got a couple really hot clubs, and it's called Printer's Alley, and nobody had even heard of it. The show should have done a little party there; would have been very appropriate. Of course, when you walk in, it has a thing that says nude karaoke, and I think that's too much information for me. I can't stand karaoke anyway, let alone someone up there nude. But anyway, then down from that though, there's a couple hot clubs. We went to one called Bourbon Street or Bourbon City, a New Orleans jazz club, and we've been there a few times, and I'm telling you what, the music, and it's a very mixed crowd, meaning old, young, black, white. Nobody felt like they were out of place. Guys in suits and ties and guys dressed in t-shirts, and a hot band. And so if you ever get to Nashville, you have to go to Bourbon Street or Bourbon City at Printer's Alley and just walk right past the nude karaoke, because it's just down from there.
Don't be distracted.
Yeah. No, it's a fun city. But I think it was a good show overall. And I hope that they build it. I think they will, because I couldn't believe the people, even I think you've been to Nashville years ago.
95.
I couldn't believe the number of people I talked to who had never been to Nashville. I mean, we're talking exhibitors who travel the world and get around, and they had never been to Nashville.
When I would come there to visit screen printers, I'd always be riding around with the distributor, or I'd go to Andy Anderson's, and then I'd go back to the airport or something, and I never really hung out downtown because there's no screen printers downtown.
Yeah.
But what a great destination for it's not New Orleans. It's got a different feel.
A little more family friendly, other than joking about the new karaoke.
That's what I'm going for.
In New Orleans, you've got these sleazy sex shops everywhere you walk. But here, you could take. We've taken my grandkids down there, and you walk around, and there's the ice cream parlor and the candy store.
It felt safe the whole time. There's no bar, scary atmosphere to it.
Yeah.
And all these bands working for tips.
I don't know if they're working for tips.
Well, it seemed every place they have that tip jar around, so I wonder how much they.
Yeah, because there's no cover at some of these places, so.
I was amazed. For breakfast on Saturday morning, I was meeting up with Rick Roth, and he'd text me a text saying, meet me at 9:15 at this place, and I looked it up in Yelp, and I didn't have my glasses on like I should have, and I'm looking at it, and I said 10 to 1:30. So I called him back the next morning and said, it starts at 10:30. It opens at 10, and he said, look at that again. It opens at 10 p.m. and closes at 1:30 p.m. So it's obviously a musician's place. So we timorously drove up in his car, and we looked in, and it's a diner, and the food was terrific.
It was Heritage? What was
Heritage Diner. Heritage Diner, and it was not very far, maybe 6 to 10 blocks away, and so it's a place that was going to be open at 3 in the morning if you want to have breakfast then too. So. I didn't have a bad meal in Nashville downtown.
So we cover all the high points here? You have your notes?
I think so.
I mentioned that we talked about being two regular guys, and that's Terry and Aaron and their podcast. It's Two Regular Guys, the number 2, regularguys.com, I think. They do a podcast every Friday, and they were there. Of course, Terry and Aaron are at all the shows because they exhibit. Aaron's with Coastal
Business Supply.
Coastal Business Supply. And so they did a podcast from the show. I haven't listened to it yet. Were you interviewed?
No.
You were interviewed
in
Atlantic City.
Atlantic City. Yeah.
But they did it on, I think, Friday. And just check out tworegularguys.com. And it's my old buddies, former employees, Terry Combs and Aaron Montgomery. And they're they bonded when they worked for me. These guys went out and they became good buds.
That's right. You mentioned that you'd had a little get-together, pictures of the
old
gang.
We kind of hooked it because we all, we have a lot of history of after-hours history. So do Terry and Aaron. Anyways, tworegularguys.com. Check out their podcast from the show. So we're going to do this again. We're not going to be in. We're going to have to go down to Surf Expo.
Yeah, sure. I am remembering that the Screen Print Biz group is going to meet in Las Vegas.
Oh, they are.
Oh, you know what? No, I'm wrong. I think they changed that. They're going to have a meeting in Chicago, maybe at the M&R factory.
Oh, not around
in
show.
August.
Yeah.
Because we're all going in Orlando. I said Orlando wrong. There's my some hires popping up. We're all going to Las Vegas for the SGIA show. So they
that'll be a
go
good
to
show.
Las Vegas
That
twice.
shows that they're really embracing
SGI
the
gotta
garment
go.
side.
Gotta
And
go.
they got a new website, and they're embracing the garment guys more and more. And we'll probably be there. Maybe we'll be there doing seminars. We aren't sure yet.
I pitched seminars, but I haven't heard back on
Yeah,
whether or not
so we'll
they
see how
they
that
wanted
turns
my
out.
ideas.
Yeah.
What I
Anyway.
really want to pitch is how I learned to screen print, which I'm stealing an idea from a guy who wrote a book about how I learned to cook. And there were a lot of parallels there, and so it's the idea that I really wanted to follow up on. Or
I think it's a great idea. This is like the old
interviewing old guys.
Yeah, it's almost like a case study, but a case study in your business. Because SGI years ago had these case studies that somebody would get up and say, "Here's what I printed, and here's how I did it." And I think people learn from that, but that's all history. That's nuts.
There are a few people that grew up in a screen printing shop, but so many of us fell into the industry backwards.
Yeah. So this is our report from the ISS show Nashville. This is Scott Fresener, Richard Greaves from the beautiful Nutwood location of t-biz Network.
Fresener, KY.
Yeah, Fresener's in Kentucky, and we'll talk to you after the next show. Thanks for watching.
Bye-bye.